We're live. I now call the regularly scheduled meeting for Monday, July 19th, 2021 of the Natrona County Board of County Commissioners to order. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Hendry?
Here.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Here.
Commissioner Milne?
Here.
Commissioner North?
Here.
Chairman Bertolio?
Here. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kaufman, second by Commissioner North to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on any item? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. The fun stuff. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of Resolution 27-21, budget approval. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes, rules of the Natrona County Commission, and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the commission to approach the lectern and state your name and address. May we have a report from Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, for your consideration is Resolution 27-21, which is an approval of the proposed budget for the 21-22 fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, in the amount of $52,181,667. This figure includes proposed budgets for Natrona County's component entities, which are the Public Library, City County Health Department, Airport, Community Action Partnership, Weed and Pest, and Natrona County Fair. As of this date, all publication requirements have been met. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Good? All right, at this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the budget approval to approach the lectern. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the budget approval? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? There being none, at this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the approval of the budget, please approach the lectern. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? There being no one to speak for or against, I now declare the budget approval public hearing closed. Chair to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve Resolution 27-21 fiscal year budget for 21-22.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kaufman, second by Commissioner Hendry to approve Resolution 27-21. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Milne.
it didn't happen this year, but maybe next year. I'd really like to talk to some of those outside agencies that are putting levies on the county for collection. Because we're up to 12. Everybody takes their full levy, and some of them, I'm just not sure why. But that'll be a discussion for next year.
Okay. Commissioner Kaufman?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a note quickly to say thank you to the county staff and to the clerk and to my fellow commissioners for working on the budget. It's a tedious and arduous process, but somehow we get through it and we all walk out of there in one piece. So just want to say thank you for everybody who contributes to the process. It's a long one, but it's good.
All right. Anyone else? There being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is a notice of application for transfer of ownership of a full retail liquor license from CC Cowboys doing business as Rax to Monty Elliott. I believe we have some correspondence between parties to consider before we have a public hearing. County Attorney Nelson, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I was contacted by Mr. Steve Winship, Attorney Steve Winship today, the attorney for Monty Elliott. He has requested that the commission table this hearing for tonight to the August 3rd regularly scheduled county commission meeting. Long story short, this was brought before based on a court order. There have been multiple things, moving parts happening, and it is desire to allow those items to work their way through the system and to then table this to August 3rd. I don't believe that there's any objection to that postponement of the hearing, and so the recommendation from legal would be to table the matter until August 3rd.
Commissioner Hendry?
So a question then is, they can go ahead and do business until then, okay?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to table this until August 3rd.
I'd second.
Moved by Commissioner Hendry, second by Commissioner Milne to table the transfer of ownership of a full retail liquor license until August 3rd. Any further discussion? Okay, being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of PS 21-002, approval of the final plat of 7 lots to be known as Mountain Acres. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes, rules of the Natrona County Commission, and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the commission to approach the lectern and state your name and address. Ms. Chavez, may we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application for Mountain Acres Subdivision by Camille Lamont. The application is a major subdivision, which is, in this subdivision, there's 7 lots. The proposed subdivision is located on Casper Mountain between Archery Range Road and K2 Road. The subject parcel and all surrounding parcels are zoned Mountain Residential 2. This is an overlay of the subdivision with the aerial underneath. You can see the lots 1 through 7 is laid out, and the green, the highlighted green area are the proposed roads that are within the subdivision. A little bit of background, the Board of County Commissioners heard this application at their April 6th meeting. The item was tabled until May 4th to give staff and the legal department time to research the status of Jackson Canyon Road and give the applicant time to meet with the Casper Mountain Fire Department. The application was brought back on May 4th, and then it was remanded back to the Planning Commission since there were changes made to the application that were different from the original. The applicant also met on site with Casper Mountain Fire District to walk the property, look at fire ingress, egress, and the property layout itself. The modifications were brought back with a brand-new subdivision process, and so we did that as PS 21-002. New application letters were sent out to adjacent property owners. We basically started the whole process over, notified Casper Star Tribune with the new legal advertisement. The applicant is also proposing to realign Jackson Canyon Road. This road would go from lots 5, 6, and up through 4 and meet up with Archery Range Road. So we would have a realignment that connects from K2 Road over to Archery Range Road. This route has been chosen carefully and determined that it is the only reasonable route to provide access through the subdivision. When they were out there walking, the topography, looking at the drainage and everything, this seems to be the most reasonable route to actually construct a road for future access to lots and to connect between Archery Range Road and K2 Road. The criteria for approval is the subdivision consistent with the development plan and the zoning resolution. The proposed subdivision generally complies with the 2004 Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. The lots will be low-density residential, which is 1 unit per 5 acres, and the health standards for sewage and water quality have been met. Is the subdivision in conformance with the general provisions and the subdivision design standards? The new alignment of Jackson Canyon Road separates a small portion of Lot 5, and it also separates a portion of Lot 7, which is where the current K2 road runs north-south through that lot. The applicant has applied for an exception to allow this split based on the topography of the land. The exception is allowed if approved by the Board of County Commissioners and not detrimental to the public goals established in the development plan, the subdivision regulations, and the zoning resolution. The proposed finding of fact, this subdivision has been processed in accordance with the applicable general provisions and subdivision design standards of the Natrona County subdivision regulations. The exception has been applied for Lot 5 and 7. Has the applicant provided evidence that a sufficient water supply system and sewer disposal system will comply with state and local laws and regulations? The applicant has applied for and received a non-adverse recommendation from DEQ. They did do the Chapter 23 study on the water and the septic, and they both passed on those. Necessary services are available to serve the proposed subdivision. Again, the applicant has met on site with Casper Mountain Fire District, or the fire department, and they have no concerns. Does the subdivision appear to be compatible with the surrounding area, not detrimental to the future development of the area, and not detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the area? Proposed finding of fact, the proposed subdivision will not be detrimental to the surrounding area, as the uses will be low-density residential and compatible with the surrounding area. The applicant will relocate Jackson Canyon Road to a safer, more accessible location, and this relocation will again connect that K2 road to the Archery Range Road. So I had taken some snips out of the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. Page 2 as the land use plan implementation. It discusses how the recommendations from this land use plan are changes to the zoning, subdivision, and design review process can be implemented by the specific recommendations by this land use plan. The page 36 also discusses the plan. The plan should also be used as a guide to formulate future amendments to the county's development regulations and to review specific development standards. So this just points out that the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan is a guide. It's not like the zoning resolution that has our enforced regulations. Again, on page 36, it lays out the process of applying the complete implementation package for Casper Mountain. There's 2 different steps. I highlighted the last sentence, which is a balanced application of the resolution is the responsibility of the Planning Commission and the County Board of County Commissioners. Throughout this process, we have had discussions about how the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan doesn't quite match the subdivision regulations and like private roads. Subdivision regulations allow private roads. The Casper Mountain Land Use Plan recommends public roads. So a balanced application of both of these. Public comment notifications were sent to 29 property owners. At the Planning Commission meeting, 1 written comment was presented to the Planning Commission, and that was at the June 8th Planning Commission meeting. Additional comments were received on Friday, July 9th, and Monday this morning. Comments from previous subdivision applications were in regards to the subdivision not having a secondary ingress and egress, the roads not being dedicated to the public, Casper Mountain Fire Department review, and concerns with Jackson Canyon Road and whether or not it was a county road. At the July 14th Planning Commission meeting, they did recommend approval of the subdivision with 4 conditions. Condition 1 was an improvement and service district to be formed for road maintenance. The Cul-De-Sac and road serving Lot 1 through 3 be dedicated to the public. Number 3, the right-of-way documents from Mr. Lever, Mrs. Reed, and Mrs. Nelson be recorded prior to the sale of the first lot of Mountain Acres subdivision. And the number 4 is the requested exception for Lot 5 and Lot 7 be granted to allow those bisected lots. And with that, I would answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Chavez? Commissioner Milne?
Yeah, Trish, can you explain what the accepted exemptions for Lot 5 and 7 were?
Right now, the subdivision regulations do not allow for bisecting a lot with a road or an access easement. There is an exception in there that can be applied for and granted by the Board of County Commissioners if it's in relation to topography, if it makes sense to route it differently. And that's what they've applied for, is basically bisecting. Lot 5 has a small little corner, and also Lot 7 has a corner that would be split off by that road.
So effectively making the acreage usable acreage less, we're allowing continued use as a 5-acre plot, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up with that, so I was curious, Trish, at the beginning, you said it generally complies with the requirements of this, so I'm assuming it's because those lots do split, that's the piece that does not? So when you say generally complies instead of complies with all of the requirements, is that why?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Other questions, Commissioner Hendry?
Yeah, so on the little piece that's split off of 5 and the little piece that's split off of 7, they will still own that, but not be able to build on it, or?
There are portions on Lot 5, and the applicant can answer this a little bit better, but if I remember correctly, Lot 5, the small corner piece, is roughly half an acre. So if it were to meet the setbacks for a detached garage, it could still be usable.
Okay.
Commissioner North?
And Lot 7 is dissected by K2 Road?
That is correct.
And that's already in there, so we're not really adding a road to that area. It's already a portion that's there, so it's really kind of a moot point.
That is correct. Lot 7 is where K2 Road goes through. The applicant is adding a public access dedication onto his plat for that specific portion that has not had public dedication before. So he's adding that, which then bisect that little piece off of there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. At this time, I would ask that the applicant come forward, and then we'll get to public. Good evening, Mr. Nakbar.
Good evening. My name is Keith Nakbar, attorney at law, 123 West 1st Street, Suite 205, Casper, Wyoming, and I am here as the attorney representing the applicant in this case. Before I get started, I would like to please reserve a little bit of time for rebuttal. I think rebuttal is really important. If issues are brought up in opposition, I'd like the opportunity to address those, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm pleased to present to you this new, slightly modified plat of the Mountain Acres subdivision, which was approved unanimously by Planning and Zoning just last week and is supported by your staff planner. I will address, you've seen this plat before, some of you have come out and visited the site. I don't want to rehash all of the essentials of the subdivision beginning at ground zero, so I'm just going to try to address the issues that I think are most pertinent and most potentially controversial. Although I don't think there's really a huge amount of meritorious controversy over this subdivision. So let me address the issues that have been raised. One is an access issue with the north portion, KTWO Road access to Lot 7, and you'll see Lot 7 is down there in the lower right-hand area. Public dedication of the roads, there's some question about whether this Cul-De-Sac road really needs to be dedicated to the public. And then you have the exception request for the splitting of lots 5 and lot 7. And I brought along a pointer this time since the laser doesn't work. So that's right here. This creates about a half an acre. I think it's just a little less than a half an acre. And lot 7 is right here where it splits off a small portion of lot 7. The Cul-De-Sac Road, of course, is right here, which it provides access from Lot 3 to Lot 1, so it provides access for Lots 2 and Lot 1. And then the issue of an improvement and service district, and I think although Ms. Chavez really did a good job of outlining the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval, I think that they, in their findings of fact, said they were leaving it up to the county commissioners as to whether to require public dedication of that cul-de-sac road and whether the requirement of an improvement and service district should be upheld or maintained, because apparently there's been some talk about the fact that improvement and service districts aren't really necessarily accomplishing all that they were set out to do. I think Mr. Nelson said that at the hearing. So let me address first the public dedication of the cul-de-sac road. So that's the road that goes from the center of Lot 3 over on the west side up to the circle at the south end of Lot 1, or actually I guess it's the north end of Lot 2. We don't have any problem at all with the dedication of roads in the subdivision, with the exception of this particular cul-de-sac, and here's why. Certainly the Jackson Canyon Road is going to be dedicated to the public. KTWO Road, where it splits Lot 7, is going to be dedicated to the public. Those are non-issues. So really the question is whether it is necessary to require the dedication of this little cul-de-sac road that serves just lots 1 and 2. The access would come across from Archery Range Road into Lot 3, and then it would go up to Lot 2 and then up onto where it touches Lot 1. It's our position that the argument has been made that the mountain use plan requires all roads and subdivisions to be dedicated to the public. However, if you look at the the subdivision regulations, in Section 9 on page 5, where it addresses roads and access, it says the applicant may be required to develop and dedicate to the public a road or easement if the road would be a logical extension of an existing public road. So we know that the general rule or the general proposition is that most subdivision roads are dedicated to the public on the plat. In this particular case, we're asking you to not require that of this particular road for several reasons. One is we all know that privacy is very important. It's a very important value, particularly on Casper Mountain. And we really are not enthusiastic about opening up this cul-de-sac, which really only serves, that cul-de-sac area really only serves one lot. Lot 2 and Lot 1 are the only lots that are served by this particular road. And we really don't want to open up any more to the public than is essential. This road is not essential to the subdivision. It is more like a driveway for Lot 1. It is very clear that the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan is merely a policy. It is not a regulation. And the regulations, which are law and do have the force of law, do not require necessarily dedication of all roads to the public. They, I believe, give the commissioners more discretion. And so the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan also, in its goals, says that it is to minimize the effect on natural resources. Building a roadway 50-foot wide to serve one lot or 2 lots at the most does not seem consistent with minimizing the effect on natural resources. Now, having said all of that, I want the commissioners to know that if you deem it essential, if you deem it necessary that we dedicate that entire cul-de-sac road to the public, we'll go along with it. It is not a drop-dead issue for us. It is a request. We think it makes the most sense. It's our desire to not have that dedicated to the public all the way up there. But again, if you choose to require that, then we will go along with it. And I think the Planning Commission didn't want to step on your toes. They said, let's leave that issue up to the county commissioners to decide. So, moving on. The next issue that has been raised and was previously raised in this matter is the K2WO road access to Lot 7. The argument was that this particular stretch of road over here, this is KTWO road, it cuts off part of Lot 7, but the argument was that this road up here and further, I think mostly from here to here, was not dedicated to the public previously. Of course, that's not part of the subdivision, but the argument was, oh, that's just an easement and could be cut off at any time by Mr. Lever or Ms. Reed. And first off, I want to tell you that KTWO Road, as all of us, I believe, recognize, is a long-established road, has been there for many years. We counted that there are more than 10 properties that rely further south on KTWO Road for access. Certainly, I think it would be safe to assume that at least some of those properties were purchased with mortgages. And what does a mortgage require? They require title insurance. And title insurance requires a title search to make sure that you have access. So I think it's probably safe to assume that title insurers have examined KTWO Road to determine whether that is in fact secure legal access and have decided that it is. No one, to my knowledge and to our knowledge, no one has blocked KTWO Road. No one has threatened to block KTWO Road. And I think that KTWO Road is much more well-established than what Jackson Canyon Road is on the subject property, the subdivision property. I would submit to you that arguing that KTWO Road is insecure is like saying that 2026, we can't rely on Highway 2026 because there might be some defect in the title somewhere along the way. And I would submit to you that there probably is. But we don't take that position. As those of us in this business know, there are many defects in roads and land boundaries and so forth, but we have to assume certain things. And when we have a road like KTWO Road that's been there for so many years, not been threatened, not been blocked, we have to assume that that is a secure public road. Certainly, if that road was blocked by someone, you'd have, if we went out and blocked that road, you'd have 40 lawsuits in a matter of days probably, because everybody would be suing you saying you can't block my access. So, in any event, we don't believe that's a real issue, and here's why. Because in 1938, there was a dedication of KTWO Road further up. It was part of a mining claim at one time, and there is a dedication in the record to Natrona County. That's the area a little bit further north where Bale and Coffee, I don't think it's on the plat, Bale and Coffee owned that land, and that was dedicated back in 1938. The Reed Major Subdivision shows KTWO Road and labels it as a county road. Reed Major Subdivision dedicates a portion of KTWO Road. So I think all of those things resolve that issue. However, to be sure, this is the belt and suspenders approach, we have secured from Lever, who owned at the time the unplatted triangle there, right above Lot 7, and from Reed, grants of right-of-way of the portions of KTWO Road that are on their property. We have secured grants of right-of-way to the public. And I have those in my file in this case. I have their original signed easements. I have provided copies of those to the staff. I believe Mr. Nelson has reviewed them. And so those will be recorded before the first lot in this subdivision, upon approval, is sold. The next issue was, I think, as I understand the issue from the opponent, is the access issue on the north portion. This is I believe, fire access for mineralized home sites on the north end of this subdivision. So, I believe it is A9, Trish, if you have that available. There we go, thank you. Okay, so the question is whether there is sufficient fire access from this subdivision to get out, or from mineralized mountain acres, which is this subdivision right up here, which is a platted subdivision. So the question is, can they get out, and can these people get out this way? And the answer to that is yes. There is a dedicated road that comes down here and joins, this I believe is Klein Drive, if I'm not mistaken. That joins up with Lot 1. Now, we cannot dedicate a road, an access road up here, because there is not sufficient clearance. There's not sufficient width. It's only like 6 feet or something close to that, where our Lot 1 and Klein Drive overlap. So we can't bring Klein Drive down and connect it with anything. But it is sufficient for fire access. So in other words, we can't build a 50-foot wide road there, but it is sufficient for fire access. And that is shown. Oh, okay.
I didn't see anybody.
I guess, if you just take a quick break. We can hear you, but the audience can't, so. There you go.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So I realized I forgot to introduce John Bryson, who's my assistant. He's the technical project manager of the subdivision for us. In any event, what I was getting at is, I believe A6 shows the detail, but don't worry about putting that up on the screen at the moment, Trish. Let's see here, yes. Actually, come to think of it, that might be helpful if you could do that for me. That'd be great. There we go. A6. This is the overlap between Klein Drive, which is in the mineralized mountain home sites, and our Lot 1. And you can see there it's about 6.8 feet. So it's not enough to really make a connection with Klein Drive. However, if in your packets, and I don't know that we need to necessarily, well, I guess I'll take advantage of the availability of the visuals. Could you put up B4, please? There we go. And I want to show K. South. Okay. So K6, there we go. You can see that that's kind of the lot line of Lot 1 in the green there, and that shows you that there is access to use in an emergency. It's, as I said, A6 shows that it's not big enough for a road, but it certainly is sufficient. It looks a little small there, but it is sufficient for fire department access to get from mineralized home sites down south, and from Lot 1 and Lot 2 up into, onto Klein Drive. More importantly, and this is where I think you really need to look, the fire department, the expert on this subject matter, has approved this with no reservation. So the fire department went out and walked the property and determined that there is sufficient fire access. We've outlined the fire access on Exhibit A9, which is in, I believe, in your packets. So let me move on then to the splitting of lots 5 and 7. So if we could go back to A2, please. There we go. So here we're talking about this cutoff at this corner and this existing KTWO road that splits lot 7. So we know that the subdivision regulations say that a road shall not split a lot in a subdivision. However, we also know that exceptions are allowed at the discretion of the county commissioners. And that's right in your rules, where the rules give you the discretion to allow splits or allow exceptions to the rules where it's appropriate to do so. We are requesting exceptions for that split of lot 5 and the split of lot 7. Let me talk first about lot 5 briefly. The route that we have outlined on lot 5 is the most preferable, and the reason is because it results in less destruction of trees. I'm told that we would have to cut down about 32 less trees to route the road that way than if we went straight down to the corner and then turned right, heading up that lot line at the west or southwest of the subdivision. Further, that route has less extreme slope. When you go straight down that boundary line to the corner, it starts to get pretty steep there at the end, and I've outlined that in our exception request letter. Furthermore, that triangle that's left, that's severed, is still a fairly sizable parcel. We were talking about the practical uses of that, and if that was my lot, I would probably build a shop there and keep my snow removal or tractor or whatever in there. You could, as long as you maintain the setbacks, I think you could use that particular piece of land. Now, could the road go straight? Could it go straight down that boundary line in this fashion? And then turn? It could. We don't like that route as much. But that is a matter that is in the discretion of the county commissioners. This is our request to route it as we've outlined it on the plat. We're asking the commissioners to grant that exception, and I believe the planning commission also was willing to give the commissioners, your board, the discretion to make that exception. With regard to the split of lot 7, there is really no alternative available. There is no way to get around that. That property was laid out many years ago when probably mining claims were established, and there's no way to avoid splitting lot 7 that is practical. I outlined a couple of alternatives that are, I guess, out there, but we don't like either of them. One is to move the road, move KTWO Road. So in other words, to reroute KTWO Road so that it turns, if you're heading south, it turns here, goes to the corner, turns right, and then turns left. So it would make a zigzag. To us, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It makes it less convenient for the public. It would add, I think, probably to some road maintenance. I think it would make it difficult to travel on that with a trailer. It's just not a good way to go. The other alternative that we thought of was dedicating that little triangle as a part of the road. We don't like that alternative either, because then what you have is a road that has a kind of a wart on it. It's a big triangle attached to it, which is land that can't be used for anything. Then nobody could build a shed or anything else on there. And then it raises the question of who maintains that land, who cuts down slash, and who clears it, and so forth. It just doesn't seem like a practical solution. Finally, the issue I want to address at this point is the improvement in service district. That is a requirement in the current subdivision regulations. Mr. Nelson, as the county attorney, suggested that that's an issue that's going to be examined. We are requesting an exception to that. I haven't submitted anything formal on that because we intend to take care of road maintenance with homeowners association, which is probably a more effective way to take care of road maintenance in a subdivision such as this. Again, that's an issue that we're not going to make a live or die request. If the commission thinks that, if the board thinks that an improvement in service district is necessary, make that part of your order and we'll comply with it. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. I would encourage you to look at all the exhibits because I think we've addressed every issue that has been raised, every question that has been asserted, we have tried to answer. We've tried to amend the plat to address all of the concerns that have been raised, and I'd be glad to answer questions. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Nakbar? Commissioner North?
Up in, at the top of Lot 1, where it goes across the power line and then back down to Klein Road, I mean, that's where you were saying the fire access was. When we were up there looking, there was a lot of rocks, large rocks that were piled across there, so that it was not available for fire access. And I want to be assured that those are going to be removed so that if emergency vehicles are going through there, they can.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner North, my understanding, we've had a discussion about those rocks. My understanding is those rocks were placed there years ago, probably back in the 90s, by a mining company that owned the property at the time. If that is a requirement to remove those rocks, that can certainly be done. So if that's, I agree with you, we agree with you that we need to maintain access for fire. And certainly if there's boulders in the way, those need to go.
Well, it's really hard to drive trucks across those.
Right.
And if you have a fire up there, that's the last thing anybody wants to have to deal with.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Mill?
Not so much for Mr. Nakbar, but for our county attorney, Mr.
Okay.
Nelson. Eric, all these exemptions or exceptions that are being discussed within the plan or the planning and zoning, within the rules, regulations, and all that, we can make those if we want to.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Milne, that's correct. In Chapter 10, Section 1 of the regulations, it does speak to exceptions, and it states that the Board of County Commissioners may authorize exceptions from the design standards in this resolution in cases where, due to exceptional topographical conditions or other conditions peculiar to the site or other conditions or circumstances, an unnecessary hardship is placed on the subdivider. Such an exception shall not be granted if it would be detrimental to the public goals established in the adopted county development plan, county zoning resolution, this resolution, or impair the intent and purposes of this resolution. So the short answer is correct. You do have that discretion. In your packet, I believe there are two written exception requests for the two roadways, and Mr. Nakmar did make a third request here with regard to the improvement in service district. And just to speak to that, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I believe that planning has prepared a text amendment that we intend to bring to the commission here probably next month.
It's on the August agenda for planning commission, so it'll be this
September, asking to remove that as a requirement. What we've found is that requiring that as a part of a subdivision is that we subdividers create the improvement service district, but then they never do anything. It just creates a lot of administrative headaches for us and the state, and we end up having to dissolve them. And really, the goal was to promote road maintenance, and it's really not achieving that goal. So we'll be bringing that request to you in the next month and a half.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Hendry?
You said that between, or well, at the bottom of 5, Lot 5, it looks like on the map, that is going to be an improved road? You're going to take the trees down and improve that road, right?
Yeah, there's no road there.
Are you referring to this?
Yes.
Yes, that would be an improved road.
Okay. Okay.
Because keep in mind, that is a reroute of Jackson Canyon Road.
Right.
So, and by the way, I mean, to the extent there has been some issue as to whether Jackson Canyon is properly dedicated to the public, as far as Jackson Canyon Road within this subdivision, that issue will be resolved if it passes.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would like to reserve some rebuttal.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of PS 21-002 to approach the lectern.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and our board. My name is Lisa Evers. I'm the Chief of Casper Mountain Fire Department. I live at 3430 Micro Road in Casper, which is on the mountain. Mr. Lamone has been very good about us coming to access it, making recommendations. When this hopefully goes through, we'll get with him. We'll work on removing boulders. We'll work on limbing up trees and everything. He's assured me that that will be done. As far as the Lot 5 and the new and improved Jackson Canyon route, I don't know if you noticed when you're up there on your walk, but there's quite a steep grade there that if it went straight down it, and only two things go fast uphill, and that's fire and grizzlies. So I would prefer the much smoother, safer way to get out, and it gives us much more access for staging due to the width and everything as far as that. If I can answer any questions for you, I will.
Any questions for the chief? Commissioner Mill?
You heard Commissioner North's question and request about the northern border of the fire access.
Yes.
Is that a concern for you?
We'll work on getting those rocks moved out of there and getting it limbed up to make it wider for us.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road. I wear two hats tonight, one personally, you know what the other hat I wear, okay? On them, so I'm gonna pass a few of these things around here. First and foremost, I'm not the opponent, okay? I just want it right.
Okay.
If I got 'em-
Mr. Lamont, are you speaking in favor?
Yes, sir, I sure
Okay,
am.
I just
but
want to make sure.
It's conditional, okay? Otherwise, I'm gonna
Okay.
be back up here on the opposition, okay?
Okay,
I can wear two hats tonight.
okay, that's fine.
On them, so, you know, I got a little story about the triangles I sent you. We call those the Thiefert triangles, okay? And Mr. Nakbar just gave you one, okay? We'll talk about the other triangle here in just a minute. You find the triangle on that drawing I just gave you, you'll figure it out, okay? Is Joe Bradley here? Joe, I'm going to show you something here, okay? Let me find it. I enjoyed jousting with you, but you didn't need to be calling me the names, okay? You stop short of, we'll just leave it at that. I was trying to help you out here.
Tracy,
Okay.
Tracy, just
I hear you.
focus this way.
I will. But I gotta find this here, okay? I'll get to it here in a bit. Anyhow, I got a couple of questions to ask, to start with. Is Mr. Lever here and Mrs. Judy Reed here?
I have no idea.
If Mr. Lever and Judy Reed are here, and I want to thank Camille too. Because when we started out on this, and Mr. Bradley, this is what I was trying to point out to you, when the road went down the east side of that parcel, and that little segment of K2 road wasn't there on Mr. Lehman's original proposal on his plat, and I'll show it here in a minute. So the road could have been blocked right there. That's where the rumors were abounding. I didn't start the rumors. I just asked if anybody else heard the same thing. So we got that cleared up, but I want to thank Mrs. Reed, Mr. Lever, and Camille, because I was challenged by Mr. Lever early on in this, when I made that statement, that I needed to put my energies to help the people get access further to the south. We got 3 of the links of the puzzle put together. Now, it's pretty good positive, isn't it? So we got to get an order. Mr. Lever just sold another piece of parcel that Camille's Road goes into, and hopefully he made another lever to lever easement so we can come back and dedicate it to the public. Now we're not much closer to the Van Horns. There's only one other parcel, and Mr. Bradley will have access, hopefully, public access. And yes, somebody can shut a road down. It's happened in my neighborhood twice. So with that said, you know, I never have had a problem with this subdivision other than it has to meet all the applicable rules and regulations that other people have had to meet in the past. If you don't, that's a discrimination. It's discrimination. So I didn't know hardly anything about this stuff, but I received a call from Jason Gutierrez on March 9th. And he said, Tracy, there's something wrong here. So, you know, an investigation was launched the next day after I went to the hearing that night. And we got to looking here, okay? And we'll go on with this, but there's a solution to all of this. And there's been so much time wasted on this, we just wouldn't have met the rules in the first place. And I feel bad Mr. Lehman's had to spend so darn much money because he wasn't told that right up front. But I think, you know, what's a mystery though, where in the hell are the minutes for the 10/16/2020 when Mr. Lehman was put through the meat grinder the first time? Jackson Canyon Road was brought up. I don't know if it was on the parcel at that, but why are the minutes of that meeting being withheld? Why are they being hid? And Eric, I sent you a letter. There was 4 months worth of minutes missing. And thank you for telling Ms. Trish here to get those up, but we're still missing October and I want to see them. What are we hiding? And at that time, Jackson Canyon Road, I listened to the video last night, it was considered a county road. All of a sudden, the next time after Jason quits, that road's off of that plat. And that's what I brought back up the night I come to the planning commission and said, you know, where's that road? I knew this was going to turn into a can of worms right there. It turned into a can of worms when Camille roped this road shut. And I knew then it was a public road, a county road. So what have we solved? We got the ropes down last weekend. Why did it take from 2018, when it was called to the attention of the Planning Commission, that's a nuisance ordinance, why did it take until last 2021? That's, what is it, 3 years? That's nonsense. We've proved that the road is a county road. And there's another blockage that blocks it from going all the way to Goose Egg. So that'll, you know, I think that guy needs to be getting a letter and saying, get the rope down. It's not a rope, he's got something even worse than that, I think. But this is because no one's enforcing stuff. We're trying to beat the system. We're trying to find all these ways not to make it work. And I just stepped up to the plate. I don't want to be Mr. Lehman's enemy nor Mr. Bradley's. The land plan, Eric, you gave it a kiss of death last week, but we're gonna bring it back to life. And I'm upset as hell about that. So, there was a lot of money spent, and, you know, us, the landowners on the mountain, and thank you for getting those road books back to the county clerk's possession too. I appreciate that. Why are we hiding the books? That was a bad deal. Why did we take Jackson Canyon Road off of the second plat? Why did we have Charmaine up here saying it wasn't a county road? What's wrong with this picture? Because
Mr. Lamont, when it comes to Jackson
Okay.
Canyon, I think we've beat
We've
that.
got that done,
We've
but-
beat this horse to death.
Anna, but I know that, but we haven't totally, okay? So, moving on. What will the width of the replacement road be? It says 50 foot, but I think that's ridiculous. You know, how wide is it gonna be, Mr. Bryson?
We'll ask him that. We'll
Okay.
follow up with him on that.
Okay, so write that down then, please. The rocks, I'm gonna tell you why the rocks weren't an issue to start with. Mr. Milner suggested they go up there in snowshoes. So those rocks were covered with snow, so no one saw them. That's not an issue, that's pretty obvious, but the power company and the fire trucks both, that's the power line the right of way on it, they can't get through there, so let's send the front end loader over tomorrow and let's move the rocks. That takes care of that problem. Width of the road, we're still working on that. I'm also going to tell you that there's no rules on the books that says you can't gate a public road. They can put a gate on each end of the public road. That rule's not there. I don't have any problem with it, they just can't lock it. There's a lot of county roads that a barbed wire fence goes over that are unimproved county roads. County Road 105 up north by the Red Walls happens to be one of those. I'm not advocating that, but, you know, if we have to dedicate roads to the public, most people in the public are too lazy to go open the gate if you're having a problem. So we got that. I do have a question. Why was the meeting moved to Monday?
So we had to approve the budget.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That was on my list. I want those minutes, Trish, of the 10/16 meeting.
Okay, we'll get
And
them to
I'd
you.
like to get those tonight to discuss that in the public comment section. That's all we have to do is go back down to the office and get the copies and bring them to me. I requested them. Shouldn't take a public records
Okay,
request.
well,
Okay? That one's taken care of. I think that's my short list.
well, that's the list we like.
Okay. Now, moving on here. And I need equal time that the presenter gave, and I want rebuttal.
No, we're not doing that because the
Okay.
presenters, it's
But I-
their project, and this is the public.
But we're deserving rebuttal when, you know, you get up and you get your clock clean.
The rebuttal's going to be, right now, I'm going to ask them about the width of the roads.
Okay.
And will any of them be gated? I'm going to
Okay,
ask
that's
if they're
fine.
going to answer
We took
those
care of-
questions for us.
We took care of the minutes, okay?
Okay?
Now, Trish, can you go to B1? Please. Our team calls that little cabin down there, it's now dubbed to the location, is Death Valley. Now, can you go back? There's one way in and no way out when that catches on fire in that north road. That lot had two accesses. That was the original cabin in that area. It's been there, confirmed to be as 1942. Go to B3. You can see the arrows coming from the cabin. That goes up there and it goes across that BLM parcel, and those people, I got scolded pretty hard last week. I was told by the BLM people it was an easement. Mr. Nakbar said it'd be a license, it's what they call a right-of-way on them. So that road comes right up there. You can go to B5, please. Okay, that's the road going up the hill and down the hill on M3 and M2. And it makes the corners and so forth. That was the original road into that cabin because they came in from Jackson Canyon Road because Hogadon Basin Road didn't exist back in those days. So when Hogadon Basin Road came to pass, in fact, Mr. Jorgensen gave right-of-ways to build Hogadon Basin Road on it. That became their secondary access. But it also became their fire escape route and a fire truck access route. But they've been told it's gone. You can confirm that from their drawing here. Now, they threw a bone at them to give them an alternative, so go to A7. That's the access that they're proposing to go into, and I believe that's between lots 5 and 6, if I'm not mistaken. What's it show here? Yep. So I happen to have the drawing of the original proposal where it shows the road blocked on. That's not K2 Road, that's Quicket Pond Trail. We need to get that straightened out here in a minute. K2 Road breaks and goes right and goes over to the Archery Range. That is actually Jackson Canyon Road, and the name of K2 Road needs to be changed and named appropriately. It's Jackson Canyon Road. K2 doesn't own the tower any longer. It's owned by a satellite company out of, we don't need to be advertising for them any longer. We'll talk a little bit more about K2 Road on it, but once again, all the way down, can you bring up the plat of Mountain Acre Subdivision there? The way they have it proposed.
Mr. Lamont, could you explain what either you're supporting or objecting? I don't understand where you're going.
Give me time.
Well, we're not staying here so that you can give us a complete history lesson here. We just want to,
I'm not giving you a history lesson. These people's access has been blocked out. They took the road here because it was too steep, and plus, if they do use the access coming into their property, I don't care if it's Joe Doe that owns it or whoever, but Mountain Acres decided to do away with that road because it's too steep in there. So now, and there's a pond down in there, they're going to have to cut that road all the way down there on them. So this easement they gave them, it's useless because the slope is too steep, and it was too steep for the people.
So are we talking the Jorgensen parcel?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not speaking for the Jorgensen.
Okay, so I guess that's where I'm kind of confused.
I'm just.
That one should be between the
No,
applicant and Jorgensen.
If I bought that property, you know, let's go back to this. There was a handshake agreement, obviously. They were coming in that way probably with the reeds. I don't care, but we'll go on to the next one. The fact of the matter is their secondary access and fire route and fire escape route is no longer because they're told they're trespassing. So let's go to exhibit number A9. This is all going to work out, Paul.
Well, I'm struggling to see where this is going, I guess.
I'm
If you're supportive
I'm about ready to
of
wrap it up. I'm
Okay,
about ready to wrap it
okay.
up. I'm not opposed, I just
Okay,
want it
that's what I'm
right.
trying,
You
you're
know, you can't have
attacking
it
it, so.
you can't have it both ways, okay, on them. So I've told them all along this will work
Okay.
out if we all work
Okay.
together on them. So we're looking at fire access number 3, going over the corner where it stops. Okay? We're all on the same page there. On it now, I got too many papers out here. I neglected to tell you that there was the parcels for the Jorgensen's original property was 300 and some acres, so it's been a subdivision. So that road that's coming up the hill was a fire escape, it's a subdivision road. And there's nothing to connect to it any longer, because we're shutting them on. And I don't care who owns it, you just call it the Joneses. So let me get organized here real quick like again. Got that taken care of, got that taken care of. So now, the triangle I gave you, what's on A6, the handwritten one I gave you. We've got fire access number 3 coming down here to the left. And that road's already there, this power line easement. And it comes over here and connects to South Klein Drive. That should say South Klein Drive on there. There's a South Klein Drive and a North Klein Drive. South Klein Drive was dedicated to the public in 1955 when they put MMH home sites together on it. So that's an existing subdivision road. It was the primary entry going into that, but the same thing is true there. Kogadon Basin Road didn't exist, so that became a secondary road. But North Klein Drive, that is in the middle of MMH, that goes on out to the road, is private. So, but there is 2 loop roads that are dedicated to the public, and they're not used, but that's basically their fire access route. So, but right in the middle of that, it says easement needed. You see that on that drawing right here I gave you?
And I believe that we'll put this on the list, but I believe Mr. Nakbar spoke to that.
No, he didn't. Those 2 roads have to connect. They're subdivision roads or fire access roads or whatever, and they go right over the top of the Jorgensens, and Jorgensens have offered that easement, but it needs to be done before this thing's wrapped up on it. If they don't, and they get upset here, they're looking for a secondary access route out of there without having to spend a fortune to build it. But they're the gatekeeper. They're the ultimate gatekeeper. They can move the rocks that are in the fire access and go right down here and put them on their line, and there is no road across there. So, you know, that needs to be worked out before you approve this darn thing, and you can do it on a contingency here, okay? You gotta have those roads connect. It's a piece of cake. All you gotta do is have them to participate in it, and then now you have 2 roads, and here's the kicker. Hers will be private, so you can't extend the public road off South Klein Drive, because I don't think Jorgensens are probably gonna say, I don't want a public road through there. I know that's what they're gonna say. So that brings you back over to the extension and the Cul-De-Sac Road. If it's private right there, heck yeah, let's grant an exception. We get hung up on all roads have to be dedicated to the public, so the land plan policy needs to be changed. Are you tracking with me?
Yes?
On them, so, but now here's the other kicker. If they have to be dedicated to the public on both ends, and they say no, there's gonna be private, well, you might as well make this road private. And, you know, just put a gate on it again, and don't lock it. It serves as a secondary road, it serves as a fire access road, but most importantly, it serves as a fire escape route, not only for the people in MMH, but also the people in Mountain Acre Subdivision. We got it worked out, right?
Okay.
So my contingency is That easement is needed before I can fully approve, okay? Or say that I'm in favor.
We can make that a contingent.
And I think it'll work. Simple phone call, it's done.
Okay.
So, and I'll also point out Mrs. Reed. I told John Bryson, have Camille call Mrs. Reed. My Lord, he called, and she gave him the easement. I'm not the bad guy here, okay? So, that takes care of that one.
How many more issues do you have?
I'm about wrapped up
Okay.
here, okay?
You're,
I haven't talked any longer than Mr. Nakbar.
and again, Mr. Nakbar is the applicant.
I understand that.
And this
but
is public
the
hearing.
The opponents should have equal time. on
Now you're
so-
saying you're an opponent.
No, I'm not an opponent.
Okay.
I was
Let's-
called the
let's-
opponent. I'm
okay.
up here speaking in favor of it, trying to find solutions. And we're almost there, okay? So now back to this triangle that I passed out to you. On, you got that handy?
Mhm.
First of all, we need to get K2 Road off there, and that needs to be Crooked Pine Trail. That takes care of that problem right there. Piece of cake. That's all I'm asking for. That's a simple fix. You can approve the plat on the provisions that it has to be done before the first lot's sold. Okay? That's a triangle.
Well, we'd have to change the name of the entire road.
What's that?
The entire road would have to change name.
No. You already got it.
That little tiny piece?
No, just the name. That's Crooked Pine Trail. This is K2 Road going right here, Paul. This is Crooked Pine, this is K2 Road. It comes down and swings right here.
Mhm.
Used to be Jackson Canyon Road. That's why it needs to be renamed all the way back to Oakland.
Okay.
So this comes down here, this is Crooked Pine Trail. It's not K2 Road.
Okay.
Easy fix. Okay?
Well,
On with it.
sure. Yeah. We'll do that later.
So, the only last thing, I can't believe we get hung up on something so small, but it says, you gotta identify the power line or the utilities. It says that right in the rules, and that's done for a reason. So how tough is it to put this license number on the center of the plat on Jackson Canyon Road? Not tough at all. We did it over here, we can do it here. On it, and then, I think, my only last thing is I'm concerned about what the width of the replacement road's gonna be. That concerns me.
And we've got that on here to ask.
And
All right.
other than that, if you get, that's my contingencies. The list is pretty short, but the most important thing is we're punishing the Jorgensen girls. I'm not speaking for them, but why? I don't get it. They didn't do anything to harm me, but they just need a way to get out of there in the case of a fire. They're trapped now. And why are they having to go to that expense? I think we can work this out by providing them a little hookup to Jackson, the old Jackson Canyon Road or whatever. I don't care where it's at, but right now, what did they do to harm anybody? I think this is all about, help thy neighbor, love thy neighbor, not screw thy neighbor, and that's all I got to say, okay?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lamont?
Thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? There being no others speak in favor, at this time I'd ask those who wish to speak in opposition to PS, whatever we're on, PS 21-002.
Good evening. My name is Brad Hill, 125 THK Road, Casper, Wyoming. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity. Some of you may have received a letter real early this morning, and that's what I'm going to speak about here this evening. I'm writing in opposition to PS 21-002 application for Mountain Acres subdivision. Recently, there was incomplete and false testimony provided during the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on July 14th, 2021. Subsequently, this testimony undoubtedly swayed the commission with their decision to approve the plat as recommended or presented. In February 2021, the Wyoming Supreme Court reversed a ruling by Laramie County Planning Commission because they chose not to exercise their right, their statutory right, to zone the property in question, which is the Lone Tree property in Laramie County. Absent any zoning regulations, they simply relied on implied power that they thought that they had available to them through their Laramie County land use regulation to deny the site plan permit for a hard rock quarry operation in Laramie County from Asphalt Specialties Company Incorporated. If Laramie County Planning Commission had developed zoning regulations that would carry the force of law specific to rock and quarry operations, the outcome of the application from ASCI may have been much different from what may have been much different from the beginning. Subsequently, there was a lot of money wasted, both private and public, on needless legal intervention. Natrona County has been down that road in the 80s, and subsequently zoning resolutions were developed. There was an explanation provided by Natrona County Attorney Nelson that spoke the differences between zoning and planning, in that zoning regulations have the force of law. I believe during the presentation from the county attorney, the commissioners were given the impression that only 4 recommendations from the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan that were adopted carry the force of law. And those 4 recommendations were MR1 district, MR2 district, Mountain Wildfire Safety Overlay District, and Slope Protection Overlay District. However, I offer the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan clearly incorporates applicable provisions within the zoning resolutions of Natrona County and the subdivision regulations of Natrona County. They include public road dedication, road access, and improvement and service districts, all of which I believe carry the force of law. It only makes sense that all applicable provisions within the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan, which are backed up with either the zoning resolution of Natrona County or the subdivision regulation of Natrona County, that force a law that these provisions would be non-negotiable, required, and without exception in the planning process. The PS 21002 MAS application falls short in each of these applicable provisions. Public road dedication, fire route access number 3, or the Cul-De-Sac, and the Cul-De-Sac, road access, right-of-way easements, and turnouts, improvement service districts. And yet, somehow, the applicant has been given a hard pass for these requirements in the planning process. Shouldn't have happened. Some of these items are in the preliminary process that should have never been overlooked. Given the significant number of omissions of required force of law provisions related to subdivision regulations of Natrona County, the Natrona County Board of County Commissioners has no choice but to deny the final approval, remand it back to the planning department to make it right. The reason this needs to happen, the planning process has to ensure that there's fair, consistent, and proper processing of development plans on Casper Mountain, Natrona County, or the state of Wyoming, as they relate to the zoning regulations of Natrona County, subdivision regulations of Natrona County, and Wyoming state statutes. Finally, I mentioned false testimony. That was given during the Natrona County Planning Commission meeting on July 14th, 2021. It's important for you to recognize the Jorgensen family has not changed their position. In regard to the opposition of Mountain Acre subdivision. This type of reckless behavior is inexcusable in a government meeting, and most certainly from someone who knows better. My family has owned property on Casper Mountain for over 50 years. We have a cabin. It's a home. And it's extremely important to follow the established regulations and to adhere to sound land management principles and planning so that my son, my grandchildren can enjoy the mountain and the cabin as I have. There's a couple items that I would like for follow-up, please. Question number 1. Within the final plat contents application, has a county road access permit been filed for? Mr. Chairman, did you get that?
I'm writing it down.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, has the applicant received a statement of review from the Soil Conservation District? That should have been done within 30 days of initial application, according to regulations. And number 3, the road dedication. You know, it's important. Not only, you know, it's a safety issue. It provides access for law enforcement. It provides access for emergency vehicles. It should be a no-brainer. You know, in essence, with adding a private road within a subdivision, you are creating a gated community. Do you really want that? I certainly don't on Casper Mountain. It's worked so well for so many years without. Mr. Chairman?
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hill?
I gotta use the map, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So what you're talking about is the Jorgensen property in this road right here?
No. You know, ideally, in my mind, because you have the ability to dedicate a road for that northern port of fire route access or fire trail number 3. You know, if that was dedicated to the public, it'd be a win-win for everybody. It's a natural extension of South Klein. It gives the Jorgensens a way out, and it gives the folks in Lot 1, or Mr. Lamont's property for that matter, a way out.
How did they get out now?
I think Mr. Lamont covered that. I think that is a portion of the stand, correct? Is that where the boulders are at?
The boulders are right up here.
Yeah.
No, they're further to, they're up almost to the point of the next point there.
They're just about straight up from where the
Yeah.
L is and
Yeah.
Y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went.
Left right there across the
So the,
property line.
We're gonna move it.
the exit that they're getting out of there now is right up here?
It came down, they had to tie somewhere in Archer Range Road
I-
there at one time.
Well, what I'm wondering about is there was no legal access anyway. If they're coming out and going this way, they didn't have legal access to begin
The
with.
problem was the reeds were related to the sharks that developed MMH. It was all in the family. And they had a community well there. And, you know, it fed MMH and it ended up on the property that Camille bought. You know, it's a can of worms, but now's the time to get it done.
It was a gentleman's agreement.
Technically, you know, if they dedicated the road private, they still have to, I mean, public, they still have to go across the Jorgensens, and the Jorgensens don't want to give a public right of way. So they're the gatekeeper, they go private, and you just solve the
Yeah.
problem. You can get public on both sides.
The issue, would you go to B, well, B3? I think it might. There.
Oh, too much. There you go. So
Yes.
the road in and out is R5 to R8. The one that they're trying to use as a alternate is a M1 through M4. And then where they go from there, I don't know.
That's where they're gonna have to go across private property.
They've been doing it.
They've been doing it.
Well, you know.
Well, that's prescriptive easement.
They got to go across Jorgensen's private property, Route 3, they got to work it out.
Again, I point out, the Jorgensens need to be here discussing this, or discussing with the applicant, and it doesn't matter if it's right. They need to defend themselves.
Well, she's got to get the easements for
Let's continue on, and we'll get to the end of this, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
members of the commission, thank you.
Thank you. Any others wishing to speak in opposition? Yes, Commissioner Mill.
Concerning Jorgensen's, can I ask Trish to come back up for a second? Trish, did the Jorgensen send a letter to this, or maybe it's Michelle?
We originally received a hand-delivered letter on June 8th at the Planning Commission meeting. And then we also received an email last week.
Right. Just reading the letter, I didn't really see where they were opposing how I read it. It didn't look like they were opposing the proposed subdivision and routing right now, as long as there was a route from, Klein on out, is what it looks like to me on their letter. Is that what you kind of read too, or not?
I think in the letter, they did speak to an access that was kind of a historic access from Klein. But I don't know really if that's what they were still requesting.
Right. But again, they're not, yeah, believe current and historic placement of Klein Drive, reasonable placement, Jackson Canyon Road is most logical, least intrusive, most compatible, is what their hopes are for the subdivision. They talk about altering it, but they don't give anything like that. I hope that if they had suggestions, they had been here. But like Chairman Bertolio says, it's kind of hard to interpolate a little bit sometimes on the letters. But from what I'm reading, their concern is from Klein Drive out.
All right.
I guess I don't really have a question. I didn't know if you read this letter or not, that's all.
I
Kind of wanting
I did.
confirmation of what I was understanding or not, but
Okay.
it's all good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think you're off the hook for a while.
You're off the hook.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Katie Lejeski, 9550 K2 Road. I am attached next to Camille's. I am not at all against the subdivision, okay? I support it. You guys have worked hard. You've worked with us. You've done a lot, and I appreciate it. All subdivisions need to be done by following the rules and regulations. This has been a long, tedious road we have traveled for 10 months. I look back to the first proposal back in October, and we've come a long way, both sides. To start with, no new subdivision should be allowed to negate a previous subdivision's or landowners' fire escapes, access, or the rules and regulations that they had to follow. The original plan way back in October did just that. But through hard work, investigation, negotiation, we have ironed out most of those issues. I don't know if the developer realizes it now or if he will down the road. But we really have been fighting for him as well. If his subdivision had gone through as planned way back in October and dead-ended my road, cut my fire access off, and something had happened, the county and he would have been sued. No questions. It was heading that way. So I appreciate that it's not happening. If we would have allowed that to continue, there would have been ropes on K2 Road in many places blocking access, and that's not what we want. Fire scares the hell out of me. It scares everyone on the mountain. If we're in town and we look up there and it looks like smoke, we're all calling 911. It's scary. Look at what just happened in Campbell County to the firefighter. We don't want it to happen here. So now imagine the next subdivision if his had gone through in October as originally planned. He possibly could be the next person that would have lost his fire access and exits and access and would have been greeted with ropes. We have to fight to continue to build on the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan and do it right to protect this subdivision, old subdivisions, new subdivisions, and the public. Piss poor prior planning can be avoided to protect everyone on the mountain. I need to ask Mr. Nelson a question. You made a statement at the Zoning and Planning that the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan does not hold the legal weight of zoning regulations. And what a can of worms that statement publicly has opened. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So, ma'am, what I was trying to indicate is that standing alone, the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan is not legally enforceable. However, I think what has been missed, I guess, in my statement, and I understand it can be somewhat complicated, is one, I think many of the aspects of it have been adopted within our subdivision regulations and our zoning regulations, and those are absolutely carry the weight of law. Secondly, I think within the subdivision and zoning resolution, there are areas where the county commission, planning and zoning has discretion. And when exercising the discretion, it is the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan, it is the county-wide land use plan that they can turn to for guidance in exercising that discretion. So to the extent that it was interpreted as me saying that it is of no value and of no use, that was taking it a bridge too far. And so I was simply trying to, there had been many comments over the course of these months that it was legally enforceable and everything had to be 100% satisfied. And so I was trying to draw that distinction that to the extent that it's adopted within the zoning and subdivision resolutions, it does have the weight of law. But when it doesn't, it's a guide. So if that hopefully clarifies some things, I'm
Yes, that completely and totally clarified. There was movement saying we no longer have to follow the Casper Land Use Plan because it is just a guide. You said it. I'm preventing gates, locked, future issues, and that clarification was great. I saw the writing on the wall of what could come down. I want to prevent it now when we have the chance. It's on the board, okay? So you answered a lot of this. Wow, I don't get to read all of it. One last final question and concern. As we have learned with this process, not all subdivisions build roads the way they are platted and approved. You can drive all over Casper and your GPS says there's a road and you find a house. It happens all the time. I will use mineralized mountain home sites as an example. We now know that part of Klein Drive is a public road and part of Klein Drive is a private road. The original Klein Drive, that is the public road that we assumed was the one going through the middle, is in a cliffside. I don't know if any of you walked it. I wouldn't want to be driving that. So they built the private driveway. But there's no record of it, that Klein Drive was abandoned and a new Klein Drive was built. It happens within the county all the time. Look at Jackson Canyon Road. We know where it's at, but can you find it on a map anywhere within the county? It's labeled unknown. We saw it at the beginning. It's an unknown road. It's Jackson Canyon. We need to start labeling the roads when these subdivisions get approved. Updating our system. So this fight, the next person, doesn't have to go through what Mr. Lamont went through. It would have eliminated a lot if Jackson Canyon would have been correctly labeled on the maps, on the websites. Roads are an issue up on Casper Mountain. You follow your GPS, you're going to drive through a shed 3/4 of the time. The road says it's here. I'm driving through the shed. It says it's right there, but the road's 25 feet there. What guarantee do we have? How can we follow up after a subdivision is approved to get the roads that were built or were not built put in the system and recorded? A challenge for the future. Not saying he'll do that, but who knows, this Cul-De-Sac road might have a mine under there. He starts building it and it falls 300 feet. I'm not building a road there, just like I wouldn't on Klein Drive where it's the legal access. We need to look at ways of solving those issues that have become such a big issue with this subdivision, so we don't go through this more. But I do support Mountain Acres. I appreciate all they've done. I'm looking forward to seeing the new road and walking it.
Okay. All right, any questions?
See, I didn't disappoint.
Any questions? All right. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? There being no others to speak for or against, I now declare the public hearing closed. Mr. Nakbar, would you come up and see if we can get a few questions answered?
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure you scribbled most of these down, so we'll just check them off as you go through them.
All right, so I'll try to be brief and address just the points that were raised by the other speakers. First off, I want to make it clear that the applicant here has never had the intention or the design to block anyone's fire access. So that I think that to the extent that was offered as an assertion, I don't think it's accurate. With regard to gating public roads, Mr. Lamont tells us that there's nothing against gating a public road, but yet he filed I'm not sure I brought it up with me. He filed an email, or sent in an email on April 13th at 5:42 p.m. where he makes the argument, as per the 2000 zoning resolution of Natrona County, Wyoming, Chapter 7, page 82, Section 7, 85, Section 2, 86, Section D, and 87, Paragraph 13, it says, "The following is a non-exclusive listing of acts or usages which may be declared a nuisance by the Board of County Commissioners. Intentional barricading, blocking, or obstruction of any county road or any private road which has been lawfully dedicated to use by the public." So it would seem to me that any roads that are dedicated to the public on this plat as a part of this subdivision would not be gated, or I think we'd have a problem with, assuming what Mr. Lamont put in his email, I think we'd have a problem with creating a nuisance that would be in violation of law. Some of what was raised is really a matter of discretion in how this subdivision is put together. Mr. Lamont is telling us how he would do it if he was the developer or the subdivider, but that's really not your role. Your role is not to say, well, gosh, why don't you do this instead of that? Your role is to protect the public's interests, and I think we have addressed the issues that affect the public's interest. Beyond that, it's a matter of discretion. If you own a piece of land, you can develop it how you want as long as you're not adversely affecting the public's interest. Let me address real briefly the Jorgensen access issue, and I think Commissioner Hendry brought up a great point. The Jorgensens were upset because this route that they claim to have historically used going down to Jackson Canyon Road, they perceive this subdivision as blocking it off. The reality is, we've not found any, nor have they presented anything showing that they had any permission or right to cross what is now Lot 3 in this subdivision. So what they're asking is that you not approve a subdivision so that their trespass route can continue to be used. And that's not appropriate. I mean, you can't block a subdivision so that a trespasser can continue to trespass. So it doesn't matter what right they might have had if they did, and I'm doubtful as to whether they actually do have a right to cross this BLM land on this road. Let's assume they have an easement. That doesn't give them the right to cross this private land to access Jackson Canyon Road. It's just that simple. And so the Jorgensen's real access, according to our work, is from the cabin this way, not down this way. I think the photos show that there is a very steep slope here. I think it says more than 20%. And even so, nothing gives them the right to trespass and cross over private property to access a road. I agree that fire access does benefit everyone, and that's why we've talked about and made changes to make sure that fire access is preserved. With regard to the allegation that there was a misrepresentation by myself, I can tell you that I spoke with the Jorgensen's attorney, Mr. Dennison, Ezekiel Dennison, right before the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I said, is your client opposed to the subdivision or not? He said, we are good. Okay? We're not going to be opposed to the subdivision any longer. That's what I was told. That's what I communicated to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that's the simple matter of the fact. There was no misrepresentation whatsoever. There is no requirement for identifying licenses on a plat. There's a suggestion that we need to add a license, and I think it's what Mr. Lamont was talking about is the power line that runs along Jackson Canyon Road as it stands existing in its existing configuration down here. There is no easement there that we could find. There is simply a license. In fact, I have the license agreement. I think it's in the record. It's right here. It's called a license, not an easement. A license is generally revocable, and there's no requirement to show licenses on a subdivision plat. Therefore, it has not been shown on the plat. With regard to the issue of whether a land use plan has the force of law, Mr. Nelson has explained it to you. The Wyoming Supreme Court has ruled on the issue. A land use plan does not have the force of law. There might be some overlap between subdivision regulations and land use plans, but regulations have the force of law. Those are law. Land use plan is a policy. When you exercise your discretion, you should look to policy, but you're not bound to policy. There is no requirement that we're aware of for a county road access permit. I think what the speaker was referring to was a county road approach permit, perhaps. We don't have that situation here, so there's no requirement. We are asking to reroute a road, Jackson Canyon Road, which some believe is a county road. This subdivision will resolve that issue as far as the road that's contained within the boundaries of the subdivision. We can't do anything else beyond that. So with all of that, we believe that we have addressed all of the issues that have been raised that are worthy of addressing. The Jorgensen's access is really an issue for their own process. It's their responsibility to maintain access. They have no legal access through the Mountain Acres subdivision land. Therefore, we're not preventing anything from them that they have right now. We're not changing anything for them. So, as I was saying, with that, we believe we've addressed all the issues that have been raised that are worthy of addressing, and we would ask you to finally support this and approve this subdivision plan. I'd be glad to answer any lingering questions.
Road widths.
I'm sorry?
Road widths?
Road widths. Okay, road widths are shown on the plat. They vary. They are consistent with what's required by the subdivision regulations. And I don't know which one specifically you'd like me to address, but from the plat, it shows that Jackson Canyon Road is a 50-foot right-of-way. KTWO Road looks to me like it is a 60-foot right-of-way. The Cul-De-Sac Road is a 50-foot wide access easement. Those are the roads that are on the plat. The Jackson Canyon Road, when it gets over to the north, I guess it would be the northeast edge where it connects with Jorgensen's, it gets a little wider. It has kind of a funnel shape there at the end.
Okay, so that's the easement. So the road widths are going to be what is required within the existing subdivision rules?
Correct.
Okay.
Those are the dedications,
Yeah.
those are the widths of the dedicated portion. The actual traveled road will be consistent with what's required by the subdivision regs.
I think there was a question whether or not an application for review by the Natrona County Soil Conservation
Soil Conservation
District?
Okay.
And I don't, it's the first time I've ever
I'm sorry, I
heard this.
don't
So I'll
know
let
the-
Trish may be the one to answer.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I did submit a request to the Conservation District on August 17th of 2020 and did not receive a response.
Okay, all right. All right, any questions, Commissioner North?
I've got, actually for Trish, what is,
Any more from Mr.
yeah,
Knack?
well, it'll be,
Okay.
this is combination,
Okay.
so what is the county road requirement for width? Not just the easement, but, I mean, what is if it's K2 is 60 feet, and we're looking at Jackson Canyon, which is a county road, does that need to be 60 feet? As far as the easement going across there, is not just the subdivision rules, but it actually fall into the county?
Mr. Chairman, this application, or the Jackson Canyon Road that would go through this portion of the subdivision would not be considered a county road. It would be maintained by the owner of the subdivision through an HOA or an ISD. However, it's chosen to move forward tonight. With that, the subdivision regulations allow for mountain roads to have a 50-foot wide road right-of-way, which would then be classified in here as having 2 10-foot travelways and then 2 4-foot parking lanes, and then of course we don't do curbs, but it would follow the same county road standards that we have.
Okay, because I thought that we were going to be realigning the Jackson Canyon Road, which is a county road, as far as what I've read and what I understand. So to me, that would not be a private road for public access. That would actually be a county road that goes across that portion. Does that make sense? Because that's what the whole, that's what a lot of this came down to, is basically Jackson Canyon Road is a dedicated county road. And if we're realigning it, then it needs to be a county road.
And, Mr. Chairman, as far as I understand, we have not addressed if moving forward with this being adopted as a county road or designated as a county road.
Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so if it is dedicated as part of the plat, it would be dedicated to the public. It wouldn't necessarily be county-maintained or a county road through the subdivision, right? So, but it would be, definitely the proposal is not that it would be a private road. It would be a public road dedicated to public usage. It would connect the clearly two portions of Jackson Canyon outside of the subdivision that are county roads, but it would be a subdivision road. So Ms. Chavez is correct. It's a 50 feet width is required, and then she went into more of the detail.
Okay. Good. Any other questions? Commissioner Hendry?
I've got one for Mr. Nakbar. We've been talking about the Jorgensens and possibly using that access or that road down through, it would be Lot 3, to get out of there in case of a fire. I'm just curious to know, I mean, you guys are not going to deny them to get out of there in case of a fire.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Hendry, I can say that from my conversations with Camille Lamont, the owner behind this, he would not prevent someone from escaping a fire or prevent access by the fire department in the event of an emergency.
Okay.
I mean, why would anybody do that? You know, and think about it this way. Whether this subdivision passes or not, it's the same situation. I mean, he could go out tomorrow and fence around the whole parcel, whether it's subdivided or not. Does that mean that he's going to run out and try to prevent the fire department from getting in or out, or prevent a homeowner from getting through his property? No more than any of the rest of us would in the event of an emergency. So that issue it's a fair question, but it really is independent of the whole issue of the subdivision. It comes down to land ownership. If there's a fire and I need to cross your ranch to get out and get to safety, are you going to block me? You know, that's really what this comes down to.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, fire is one thing, not a ingress and egress all the time, but if you needed to get out of there, you get out of there.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner North, or Commissioner Mill? I know that was really, I'm sorry.
Sir, you said, you talked about a HOA a little bit. Is it, Mountain Acres is going to have an HOA then?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Milne, my understanding is that the preference of Mountain Acres is to have an HOA to maintain the roads instead of an improvement and service district. There needs to be one or the other.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Nakbar? Commissioner, none? Okay, you're off the hook.
Okay.
Commissioner Kaufman has a
So for
question
county attorney, so do we, if we tonight say the stipulation would be an HOA instead of a service district, is there an enforcement mechanism on that? I mean, I understand why we maybe want to get away from those and they're very difficult for us. How does that work if that's a stipulation of this?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kaufman, yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair question. Obviously, you know, an HOA is a private contractual relationship, and if they're willing to enter into that, it really obviates the need for the improvement and service district. You know, as far as enforcement, I mean, I guess I would turn to Ms. Chavez. I mean, if we approve a subdivision, historically, if they haven't complied with the conditions, I'm assuming that we have an enforcement process through the planning department, but in my time at the county, we haven't had to engage in that. So I don't know if you can add any color to what that process would look like.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Nelson, I think that if it was added as a condition that the road maintenance be handled privately, that it would be enforceable through our enforcement process. And that's whether we take legal action or however.
Which coincidentally is being redone and reworked through our zoning rewrite and everything else. So yeah, we have some fairly convoluted enforcement processes now. We're working to streamline those as we move forward. So I think there would be an enforcement mechanism. I'm just not prepared to speak specifically to what that would be. But I think if that was a condition, it would be enforceable just like any other condition that you would impose upon the approval.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Nakbar? Follow-ups? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. The ISD or the HOA could be provided as alternatives, that either one or the other be adopted.
Okay. All right. Chair to entertain a motion.
If anybody wants to take a whack at this, right?
Yeah, that's the,
I've got it kind of written down.
okay.
And we can modify, laugh at me as it goes. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve PS 21-002, incorporating all finding of fact by staff with conditions and exceptions. Conditions being, 1, road improvement and maintenance required by either requiring of the Mountain Acres HOA or an improvement service district. Number 2, cul-de-sac and road serving lots 1 through 3 not be dedicated to the public with the contingent of being a fire access to Klein Drive. 3, right-of-way documents for K2 Road from Gary Lever, Judith Reed, Elizabeth Nelson be recorded prior to the sale of the first lot of Mountain Acre subdivision, and 4, the requested exceptions concerning lots 5 and 7 be granted to allow bisected lots.
I'd second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve PS 21-002 with findings of fact and conditions, as very eloquently stated. Is there a second?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you seconded. Okay. Discussion. Commissioner Hendry.
I agree with that. What about the rocks in Lot 1?
We make friendly amendment or something.
Sure.
That would work if you want to get those removed.
So friendly amendment would be condition 5, which would be to, remove, modify the rocks on lot, what is it?
1.
1, to allow access through for the fire access.
And I would agree with that.
May I add one other thing
Sure.
too, is the trimming of the trees according to
Yeah.
Mountain Fire. Yeah, that, I mean, that all inclusive of that.
I would just, could we just say all fire access will be
Clear access.
clear all the way through, which, because there's
fire
probably some trees down and whatever
Trees
else in
down,
it, so.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, so just point of clarification, did you say ISD or HOA? Either, okay. Thank you.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hendry.
I would say from the first time we heard this and from the first time planning and zoning heard it, the applicant is really changed things to make it work. And we found out, Mr. Lamont helped find out lots of information about the mountain, lots of information about Jackson Canyon. I think in the future, we've talked about working on the mountain and the mountain plan, and that's probably coming up. I think that we ought to do that before a lot of these subdivisions crop up, to have a dedicated plan up there. So that may be coming. And look at Jackson Canyon Road down the road. Where it goes, what it is, and Tracy, I'd like to thank you for you really found a lot of information. And the books, we weren't withholding the books. We couldn't find them. Nobody knew where they were, and we've got them now. So,
Got 2 sets.
yeah, thanks.
Yes. Commissioner Kaufman?
I would have said what Rob said. I feel like it's been a very long process, and I think very carefully we've made our way to here, and I appreciate both sides being able to work together and take the recommendations and come back and come back. It's been long, but I think we've ended at a really good spot, so I'm very appreciative of your efforts. Thank you.
I guess there's no further. I would just add I appreciate Mr. Lamont's patience on this, as well as all of Tracy and everyone's work on this. It really kind of highlighted that we need to focus on the mountain and look at all these trails and roads that we have that have been used by the public for years, and they're pretty sacred up there. And we need to come up with a long-term plan and actually adopt them into our zoning and subdivision rules that recognizes these, so we don't go through this same process. I think this one has actually been a great benefit to not only staff, but to us in educating us on what goes on up on that mountain and the challenges that we're probably going to face even more severe in the future. There's some big lots up there that are probably going to be looked at to be subdivided, and we really need to get it right. And the comment of Mr. Hills, I think, was we need to get this right the first time and not keep going through this and making the applicant come back for a year to go through this process. It's not fair to the developer either to have to go through a process that's murky. So with that,
One other
Commissioner Hendry.
little comment. You know, the phones, and you can go look and see where the landline is on the phone program and stuff. It isn't just right on. That phone can be off 50 feet or 100 feet very easily. It happens a lot in the country, and so what it says on the GPS on your phone sometimes isn't. It takes a surveyor, and it, you know, you could have two surveyors up there come up with a different corner too. So, you know, I know when you said that, I thought, man, they aren't exact. So, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah.
No further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. We are at that point in our meeting for public comment. Oh, should I do it now or? Well, I'll do it after public comment.
I just like to say, you know, Mr. Lyman, he's a good guy on it, and I didn't do this to put you through a bunch of nonsense, Camille, but, you know, back to, they're trespassing against, you know, against Jorgensen, but that's okay, you passed it. That was the only hang-up I had on it, and I read those rules so many times, I got the swimming in it, so Mr. Nakbar is right, okay? On it, but that is, we gained a whole lot. I appreciate you guys' patience in putting up with my emails and what have you, but, and I appreciate the comments too, so we'll go from
All
there.
right, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrew Schneider, 8711 Everett Lane. Just want to thank you all, as I always do when I come before you, for the hard work that you all do. And I agree with a lot of the comments that you all made about the final decision you just came to. I just wanted to touch back on a conversation we had when I was standing up here several months ago. Just that in 2004, there was about a year development moratorium, and then the 2004 land use plan was partially adopted. Based on the comments that were made publicly in planning and zoning, and Michelle just sent me today the resolution from 2004, I think it underscores even more so the importance of thinking about that moratorium again and correcting that plan. If if we're only going to use the pieces that were adopted by resolution that were sort of sidelined out of that 2004 plan, we're losing eagle habitat, we're losing several emergency management and road inventory implementation plans. So I think it would be very wise before you have proposals coming in for zoning to get that, to put a time out. And the one thing I just want to point out is that there were some comments made about, in a conflict, we go with the subdivision. I think in this, or we go with the subdivision regulations as opposed to the land use plan. I think you kind of did both on this issue. So I understand that is at your discretion, but nowhere in the 2004 land use plan does it say the purpose of this plan was to create wiggle room and gray area and loopholes and a nightmare for development. So I just ask for the peace of mind and the good order of the community up there on the mountain that you take a pause on development, get the plan aligned with the resolutions that you want to have, and end this kind of cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Brad Hill, 125 THK Road, Casper, Wyoming. I want to thank each and every one of you. Public service is not easy, and it's even worse being elected. I spent 15 years in state government. I did a lot of planning. I worked on a lot of recreation planning, Yellowstone, each national forest plan. So I know the challenges that you all have. I'm a set of eyes. I'm retired. I'd be more than happy for citizen review on anything. I'm here to help. But as I said before, we just need to make sure it's right for Mr. Lamont, for Mr. Smith, everybody going down the road. And consistency is the key moving forward. But thank each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Before we get to commissioner comments, I have a quick announcement. Earlier today, the commission had a special meeting and interviewed 2 candidates for the sheriff's upcoming sheriff's vacancy. And I'm pleased to announce that the commission selected Under Sheriff John Harlan to fill a position.
Take over.
And he will start when Sheriff Holbrook officially resigns on August 1st. So, with that, commissioner comments. Commissioner Milne.
Why are you looking at me? Yeah, so hopefully everybody had a chance to go to the Central Wyoming Fair and Rodeo over the last week. Fantastic rodeo, great show. The trick road, the clowns, the trick rider, the trick lariat, gun shooting, bull whipping entertainer during mid-time. He was fantastic. Great people, very nice, very, very happy to be here. The whole rodeo was just a fantastic success. So for the carnival and all the funds coming in, we're the fair. Now this is just kind of rough numbers right now, mind you. Not everything's settled out, but it was up 34% from 2019. And it was and 2019 wasn't that great of a year, but we were even up over 2018, which was a good year. So fantastic fair rodeo. The reserve seating on Saturday's finals was sold out. Yeah. And I want to thank all the sponsors. There's too many of them. I'd be sitting here for a while, but I want to thank each and every sponsor. They were fantastic. Thank you for sponsoring the Fair and Rodeo. The 4-H, the FFA kids with their livestock auction, $1.184 million.
Is that the first time they broke
It's
a
a
million?
record.
Oh,
First
yeah,
time they broke a
yeah.
million?
Oh, it just,
And they shattered it.
It shattered.
1.1,
1.184 million.
almost 1.2. Holy moly.
Oh.
But they got to sell more animals this year.
There's a
That
whole
helped.
lot more animals.
Yeah.
A whole lot more beef, and when you're going 5-6 pounds Yeah, it goes up quick. So it was overall a success.
Okay. Commissioner Hendry?
Well, I would agree that the sale was looking good. It cost me a lot of money too. I went in and bought 3 animals, so that's a good sale. That was great. We had some good candidates there for sheriff tonight, and I think John Harlan will do a good job, and we're going to support him. And I know everything that's going on around the country, we don't want it to happen here. And so we're well on our way not to have it happen here. Other than that, I would mention that we've had a couple of fires out on the Bighorns. They've gone anywhere, luckily, but the BLM and the county fire, and everybody's jumped right on them, and that's really good, but we've really got to be careful.
Okay. Commissioner North?
The fair was great this year. Only had one night that it rained out very much, so.
Didn't rain out, it just got muddy.
Just got really muddy, really muddy. So, yeah, that was, but the rest of the nights were good, so that was expected. It just all happened in one night, so that was good. We did have 2 really good candidates to replace Sheriff Holbrook, and that's going to be a challenge. It would have been a challenge for either one of them to fill those shoes, but I think John's going to do a good job of that. Did want to say that we are working on some of the parks up on the mountain. We're going to be cutting some of the standing dead that's down in the Ponderosa Park area to make it safer for everybody. We'll let you guys know, let everybody know as that moves forward and where we're at on that. But that's been a long time coming, and we're moving forward on it. So thank you.
Commissioner Kaufman?
I can't pass up a chance, but I'll make it super quick, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to Under Sheriff Harlan. I think he's going to serve us really well in the role as sheriff here in Natrona County. Again, I want to thank everybody who participates in the budget process. It's one of the most heroic things that we work on at the county, and it just passed tonight. So a round of applause to all the staff who makes that happen. It is an amazing process. Just to follow up quickly on the fair, I did hear 140,000 people through the gate. So awesome job to Fair and Rodeo and the board. And I know you guys were out there all week volunteering, which is tremendous. So thank you for that. It wouldn't go on without you. And then the last thing is there is some activity that's getting ready to go on the mountain. We've been working with the park staff with a company called RDG on some wayfinding up on Casper Mountain. So it's been a long time coming. There was an earmark that passed in the budget today, so hopefully maybe in the next 12 months, 6 months, we'll see some wayfinding signage up on Casper Mountain from a vehicular perspective. So that's what I would have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one thing. I also serve on the Central Wyoming Regional Water System Joint Powers Board, and we were notified, and a press release went out, of which we had one entity actually publish it. Thank you very much. We have a chemical issue out there in the fact that some of the chemicals that we use to actually run the plant, just the water plant, not all the water, but just the water comes out of the plant, is experiencing problems, and we're looks like going to start running short of one of the chemicals. They have asked all users that are tied to the regional water system, which basically is all of Casper, Wardwell, Barnum, Midwest Edgerton, Pioneer, all the ISDs. Anyway, there's too many of them to go through. But to cut your watering of your grass down to a minimum for at least the next 2 weeks. They're hoping that this issue will resolve itself, but it may not. It may go on as much even into the middle of August. So they're asking that you water no more than twice a week. If you do, please do it not between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. because the water is just essentially evaporating before it gets into your yard. And water deeply when you do. If your grass browns a little bit, it's not the end of the world. This is not an issue that is going to perpetuate itself all the rest of the summer. And again, we have plenty of drinking water. We run the most expensive plant to water our grass. The well field itself has capability of providing all the drinking water, showers, domestic use that we have. It is the plant. So I'm announcing this in hopes that maybe some more people hear it. The regional water system, the Joint Powers Board will be meeting tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll have a little more discussion on how we get this out to the public. But I thought I'd take this opportunity. So thank you. And with that, I have nothing else. Chair to entertain a motion to adjourn.